ain't gonna expose. I'm not like that. I'm not a snitch. Virginity. It's a hush-hush topic. Yeah.
They love me.
Let's see if your parents raised you.
It's deeper than the physical.
What up, fam? Welcome back to the Juxtaposition, everyone. Welcome back to the Juxtaposition. I'm your host, Nana, alongside my lovely co-host, like we say every week,
Janet. And Bernice.
Well, we have a special guest today. As you can see, today's going to be a great episode. I'm just going to do my little introduction, guys. So if I look at my phone, it's because I'm reading off of something, but I'm still professional. So today we got L.A. Wade. She is award-winning social entrepreneur, executive producer, the host of Cocktales with L.A., which is a podcast. She's reality TV star, writer, and spiritual midwife. She holds a Master of Education and has worked as a registered and sessional lecturer for 11 years. She has a wonderful story to tell, and today we just got her here on the podcast, and we're just going to have a great conversation. L.A. Wade, how are you doing?
I'm blessed and highly favored.
Sorry, that name is so cool because Dwayne Wade's my favorite basketball player.
I used to like low-key lie, and sometimes if people, like a cop pulled me over and they read my license and they asked, "Are you related to Dwayne Wade?"
Oh, wow.
I'm like, "We're not supposed to really talk about it." And then he's like, "I understand," and just kind of I'll lie. I'll straight lie if I'm going to get it. Like, sorry, but like,
yeah.
So is the Wade part for your love for Wade, or is it actual like a part of
Wade is my last name, my actual last name.
Oh, nice.
LA stands for Lorianne. Yeah, so Lorianne, and it's not even hyphenated, but because it sounds like it is, people just started calling me LA. You know, people like to just shorten your name. They don't ask you whatever. They're just like,
LA, what's up, man? LA.
B.
Yeah. Actually.
Yeah. So that was kind of how it happened from a long time ago. I work at the University of Toronto still.
Oh, okay.
And the vice provost calls me LA. So there's really like, everyone calls me LA. That's just what it is. But yeah, it's really great to be here. I feel blessed and highly favored to be in the presence of young people who, at least pursuing a relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And we'll break that down in a little bit when you start asking me questions. But yeah, it's really, really great to be here. Thank you.
No worries. It's a pleasure. So can you tell us about your background and like kind of like you said you work for U of T. Tell us a little bit about your background if possible.
Okay, so I work for the University of Toronto. I actually, first of all, I ran away from home at 16. Mm-hmm. So I had to drop out of high school right before I graduated. And I started working retail, and I lived in a basement apartment. And from that experience, I ended up working with some youth, and the program was called Blueprint for Life. And I would go into different schools. This was back in 98, 99. Mm-hmm. That's right, I'm older.
You were just born.
Right? You were just born. So back in those times when there was all that killing and stuff, which continues today, but they always act like it's novel and it's the only time that it's happening. So back then it was also like a lot of killing of Black people, not by police, but by each other. Mm-hmm. And DJ X was this DJ at CKLM because we didn't have Flow 93.5 or any commercial radio stations yet. And they were able to ask me to put together kind of like a seminar for people to understand who they are better in relation to the violence that was happening. Because maybe if we knew more, we would do less violence to one another, right? And so we did this thing called Blueprint for Life. We traveled around a bunch of schools, and I won a Scotiabank Caribbean African Achievement Award for it. Nice. And it was a really great time. That was back in the late 90s, I ended it in 2000 because I had my first son back then. Mm-hmm. So it's been an interesting journey in terms of that. But U of T, in regards to U of T, I ended up going through a program there called the Transitional Year Program. And in this program, you don't have to graduate from high school to be able to get an opportunity to go into the university. Wow. Or if you have really poor grades for one reason or another, it's hard for a lot of people, and it impacts how they're able to go to school. Mm-hmm. So what they did is they did an 8-month program and allowed these students to get the equivalent of credits towards their arts and science degree. Once they successfully completed the program, they were automatically accepted. They didn't have to apply. And it still goes on today. And after doing that, I did my undergrad and then I did my master's. And right out of my master's, they hired me to be the registrar because, well, they just thought, you might as well. You know how LA is. And so because it gave me such an opportunity, I think I really threw my heart into that program. And so I think I'm in my 13th year working at U of T. Wow. And so and it was at U of T when I was going to school that I got baptized because I had been saved I got saved probably around the same 90s time probably just before you were born. And I never got baptized right away. I don't know why people don't do, I don't get it. Yeah. I don't know what the weight is.
Fear. Yeah.
It's the fear? Okay, well, I'm fearless in a sense. So but I didn't do it. I don't remember why I didn't do it. And then I went to U of T. And as I was going to school there, I did my undergrad in sociology and religious study. And I'm learning about all of these other religions. And I'm learning the way that the science world and the carnal world approaches even education. And I saw it as like a devil colonization of our spirit as well. Because you kind of get disassociated and you start to replace what you know in your spirit to be true with the world. And you kind of can start to lose yourself. But for some reason, God has had his hand on me since I was little, which you'll get into in a second with my past. And so I don't know what it was, but he just guided me. And when I hear God speak, like when I met Janet and I spoke to that, I also felt that same impulsion to, it's time now. I have to do it now. Everything becomes really urgent. And I don't know if that's good because I have anxiety. So when you feel the urgency, you can kind of feel like you're losing a sense of your control, right? And that's never a good feeling, but that's part of the development and evolution of who you are. And what we do is we judge ourselves on every aspect of who we are as people and then feel like, yes, we're falling short, but then you feel like you are short of God's glory, but you're not. You're not short of it. You're always that. No matter if I say something, I think Stephen Furtick was talking the other day about when never becomes now, he was the saying. And it's basically, have you ever said, I'll never, ever do that? Right. Yeah. And then you find yourself in a situation that makes you do the very thing that you said you would never do. And so that's God, because it's like, sometimes you have to go with the ebbs and flows. Yeah. And so if you can just find a mindfulness, relaxation, peaceful, conversation or peace with sitting with somebody you really vibe with, which is God, you can be like, yes, this stuff sucks, but this is not me. This is the situation where I have to do something that I never thought I would need to do. Yeah. And it just calls for it. It's a survival technique. Right. Yeah, nice. Sorry, that was a long-winded. My bad. I talk for a living. I talk for a living.
Okay. Well, let's just get into your childhood. We spoke about. Boy. Oh, yeah, we're gonna get into that.
We're gonna get real now.
Open up the floodgates. Speak about your childhood because you kind of touched a little bit about it, but if you want to share.
Man, my childhood. Let's
start with, where did you grow up?
Okay, so I grew up in Mississauga. Okay. I was actually born across the street from Sherway Gardens in Etobicoke and then moved to Mississauga. And somewhere between that birth and 5 years old, there were various people in my family, specifically male, that felt that they had a right over my body, a right over how I should think about certain things. Before I had the concept of who I was. Right. So I never really got to evolve knowing who I was, which I guess is a blessing now because I don't feel that attachment to being a certain way because I never created that for myself. It was always based, which has its downfalls, of course. So I, somewhere between 5 and forever feels like, I was just, I learned about myself just as a person and also as a sexual being through the touch of people that were supposed to be caregivers.
Keeping you safe.
Yeah, keeping me safe, my protectors. Yeah. And then because of the immigrant situation in terms of trying to position yourself economically, especially back then, it was hard for my mom. So she had to work like 3 jobs. So I was left alone a lot. And so now she blames herself. So this whole thing just starts to permeate the entire family. Right. So I think that what we don't understand is, at least in our community, that when something happens to someone there, it's happening in so many other places. I'm on my way to Kenya tomorrow for a documentary I'm doing with Selena Caesar Chavan. And the woman at the concierge that arranges our flights, she said that she works for an organization where she donates sanitary napkins to women because if she doesn't, men use sexual favors for them to be able to have it. So you either have the shame of not being able to, put something on to keep yourself clean, or do a sexual favor for this person, or else you won't have that. Wow. Like, I mean, I'm like, what?
That's crazy.
You're like, this is a normal thing here. You know what I mean? Like, we kind of we don't realize how
so
normal.
Yeah, so you should see my luggage. It has a lot of sanitary napkins in there because that's what you do. Yeah. But so I was sexually abused and molested from the age of 5, and I ultimately ran away from home at 16. I was very promiscuous. I wasn't asked. If you see somebody banging their head over and over again, would you go say, look at her banging her head all over and over again? Or would you go over and stop me from banging my head? And there's people that, they are fine just telling somebody, go look at them. Right. There are people like that. They're trifling and they're your trolls. You see them on your IG, right? And so that's those people. Right. But you think of a parent being somebody who wouldn't be like,
see their child touch the fire and be like, it's okay.
Yeah. And so that's how I felt. Like my family saw, or maybe they didn't know what was happening to me.
Or how to even
but I'm banging my head against why am I doing that? Right? Why am I hurting myself? So they just, they didn't understand. And I think the most profound time for me in my abuse was, there was 2 major times, but the first one is maybe too graphic, but the second one, it makes me really aligned to Sarah Jakes Roberts, because I was probably 11 or 12 years old when I was deflowered by a rape. And that situation ended up in a pregnancy that I had to go to Detroit to terminate because I didn't know how far along I was. And I was only like 11, 12 years old. And my mother said that if we go to the police in this country, they're going to rip you apart and make it about you and making the shame. And this is, I'm sure this is her fear. And I get that. But I didn't have a say. Right. And the only reason I tell this story so openly is I know it's heavy in these streets. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. God is with us. It's all good. The only reason I can share this story is because when I had children of my own, I could see their development. And I remember when my oldest son turned 7, and I was like, I've seen this little child. Right. And it was the first time that I recognized that I was a child when that was happening to me. Because in your mind, you don't think of yourself as your age. You just know what you know. So I grew up believing that I was doing something, that that's who I am and that's who I was. And, all of the manipulation. And this is what I learned as a way of relating to people, including God. Yeah. Right? But there would be times where I would just cry. I would just weep. And I was telling you this when I talked to you on the phone that first time, is I didn't know what to say. I was just a child. But I had this sense that God was listening to my tears and that I was being soothed somehow. And even it was a soothing of, here's a mark, go after it. This is how I want you to try to be. Yeah. Let me go after it. Now, you're not going to make it all the time, but I love you because you at least want to please me. You're putting me first. You're sacrificing something that you want for me. And that's all I'm really asking of you, because that will help me fulfill my purpose. Not that I need you, but because we're in relationship, it's a co-creation, right? So that was the most disturbing part of my childhood. And what happens is there's a reverb when something happens. There's a process that happens. Just like when you plant a seed, there's a gestation period, and then there's more growth, and then more growth. So this situation is very similar to that, in the sense that these seeds were planted in me of the abuse, of the manipulation, of the trauma, the screaming, all of it. And this is how I'm evolving without anyone intervening and saying, this is the rules. This is what you do.
Right.
You're just going off of what you know. Right. And with a mother who was absent, and I don't say this to blame my mother, because she has to go through her own thing. And what I'm realizing is when there's abuse, there's more than one person in that family that's been abused. And so maybe all of us are in pain, but nobody's talking about it because it's shameful. And not to jump ahead, but there's a pastor named Pastor Daniel Winter, and I think he's a part of Open Arms Church in Oshawa, I want to say, or Whitby or something. I interviewed him on my podcast. I used to do Instagram lives, and I'm very controversial online. And I did a show called Sex and Spirituality, and I wanted the church to friggin' talk to things them, okay? I was sick.
Because they don't.
Because they don't. And people are out here in their shame. Right?
Not even doing it, trying to experience, like, people want to experience, and they're searching themselves instead of getting the guidance already. And then going out and, like, knowing
Exactly.
It's like, how do you expect children who get pregnant at 16, not, like, they don't know nothing.
Right.
Like, and their parents are probably ashamed to talk about that topic.
Of course.
For me, my mom never talked about that topic to me. So, like, it's just being in the church and being immersed and, like, putting myself and having other mentors who allow me to guide me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Don't talk about it, because people are struggling out here.
No.
And they want to talk about it when you're, like, out of it. You know?
When you overcome it.
Yeah, or when you're pregnant.
Or when,
or when you had the abortion.
When you're done.
Exactly.
Now you want to minister me?
Yeah. Exactly.
Get lost. Like, what?
Right.
Hello?
Where were you?
There's something called prevention.
Right.
Just saying.
Mom always used to say prevention is better than a cure.
You're damn right. So yeah, exactly. That's what was going down, is that I went through a lot of crap, and I learned about myself through the eyes of everybody else. Mm-hmm. So imagine your identity is Christ, but you have no idea that that's what that is. And that's where most of us are. There's a pastor named Pastor Q Wilson, and he said to me once that it's like we have amnesia. Mm-hmm. Right? We have amnesia, and we're trying to jog our memory back to find our identity. And I really believe that that's what was happening for me. And now where I sit is in full memory and in the fullness of Christ. And I just, and I'm not like, I go to church. Sometimes I watch online mostly because now it's convenient. 2020 just changed the game for me. And I'm a busy woman, and I'm a mother. So it's hard to balance everything. And not that God has to be, put on a shelf, but I also feel like I'm doing what God's asking me to do. Mm-hmm. So discernment is something else that the church doesn't really teach you what to do in a moment. It's that same, like, I'd never do that, yet here I am doing it.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean? I'd never do that. Then, so how'd you get in?
Yeah, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that.
Listen, we all are. Because, and then we say that I'm guilty, but that's just the human condition. Right. So you're guilty. So that's where I think that's what it means when they say we're all sinners. There's nothing we can do about that part of it. That's how he made us to be, flawed. But the greatest form of love is when you give somebody choice, right? And that's what God gave us. He gave us choice. Do you want to choose me? I'll choose you. I've already chosen you. Will you choose me? Right? And that's the choices. So when we make decisions when we're in situations where we would never do that, he gave us choice. and we don't exercise our choice, like kind of like how we don't exercise when we're going to put somebody into politics. Like we just let things happen. We don't understand our entitlement to our choices. And that will be the biggest revival when we do.
I have so many questions in my head, but I just want to ask a question.
Yes. No question is off the table, clearly.
In that moment, your 5-year-old self, like your whole family dynamic, were you guys, like, was your mom trying to protect the person that was doing that to you? And also...
I don't think she knew.
Okay.
So what did you and your mom?
What she saw, wait, 1 second. What she saw was me acting out.
Okay.
So trying to figure out what.
She didn't even want to. Well, this is the thing. This is the thing about my mom is she's a lovely, wonderful woman. Yes. I love you, Mom.
She's awesome.
Honestly, she really is awesome. But our parents, man, they didn't have the freedom of the feistiness that North America has given Black children. Let's just be honest. It's given us, the audacity to speak.
Up,
Whereas we know that the enslaved people, what you pass on is what you know. And your environment also informs those things. Right. So where they were informed, where they grew up from the enslavement of whoever raised them, that was carried on to a point with us, with the way that they used to discipline us. Like licks was just like, you're getting licks, right? They're going to cut you. Okay. So that was taught to us. But then I'm in a place where they're in school and they're like, hitting is bad. Yes, you don't spank people and you do timeouts and whatever. So that starts to impact me. And I'm just like, you know what? I didn't kind of like the lashes. So I'm not going to do that to my children. Look, the culture is telling me to do blah, blah, blah. So that's how it evolves. Like different things evolve. So that was the culture of the way it was. And so you don't speak. No, right? And a lot of people sometimes, especially in the Caribbean and Africa, they fear for their lives. Look, the story I was just telling you, they literally are doing sexual favors for their... Like what? To be sanitary. And then when men don't understand what a patriarchal world looks like, it's like, can you hear us now? Right. Can you hear us now? Because that's what we're talking about. Yeah. So we kind of gloss over a lot of things in our society, but what I like to do with my branding of the things that I put myself into is to talk the things them, because because I saw what it did to me, and I can't help but feel like that was purposed. So therefore I don't feel bad about my past. That's just a part of what's happening now. I'm being used for God. Somebody who loves me, not used for sexual favors by somebody who's manipulating me and hurting me. So I choose God all day. Do I fall back and want to be touched? Hell yeah. That's what that is.
As your mind is already there too, it's like you can't always forget what has happened. Like it still feels good, but it's like you have to choose to do something.
Because that's the love, right? And me not choosing you doesn't mean not loving you. So that's what we have to read. That's what helps you forgive yourself. Is that you have to communicate that. If you're in a relationship, you communicate those things. It's like, I can't talk to you right now, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. And if you're sincere, that person knows that. Right? If it's insincere, that person knows that. So why do we think it's different with God? Just tell them. Tell him. Her, whoever, whatever you want to. My God is my God. So I tell my God that, I smoked a lot of weed this week, God. And it's hard out here in these streets. So that's what I'm doing. But it also says, not to make anybody stumble, but it does talk about the law of the land, that you can follow the rules of the law in the land that you live in. And this is where I live, and it's legal here, so I don't feel bad. Also, there's a disciplining aspect to everything you do in your life. And so for me, if I'm in prayerful or creative mode based on my gifting, then I feel like when God doesn't want me to do something, I will discern or feel that that's what he wants me to do. He talks to us. He talks to us and we know better. So for me, nothing has convicted me to change anything about who I am, but there are things that he's nudging me along with, because ultimately I know that he wants me to do something that I have to level up to. I'm not there yet. So, but that's because this part is a learning ground, right? So I can't be resentful of where I am in my development. All of it doesn't even mean anything. None of this, we apply meaning to everything that we have around us. When you're dead, or if you can't breathe, all you care about is getting that breath, because your breath is your life. That's your life force. So just concentrate on your breath and drink your water and mind your business.
That's it, folks.
And that's it. Shout out to Sarah Jakes Roberts.
With your story and kind of like, did you feel like God made that happen? And like, how did you?
Yeah, I don't know if he made it happen, but I know that he allows it to happen. And I guess that's a nuance that we always like, what the heck does that mean? You're talking
like
in
that.
circles.
Like, oh, they made my
Like, will you talk straight?
Like,
What are you talking about? What do you mean if I do this, but you don't do this, and if you do this? And yeah, it can get confusing for sure. But it's a discernment thing more than anything. And that's why I don't understand why they don't really emphasize your personal relationship.
Right.
You know, all of the things and experiences that you have are there to formulate any given moment you find yourself in, like this one. Everything that I've been doing up until this point has led me here. Was I confused about things that I was doing along the way? Yes. But that was part of it, because now, when I talk about the breath and the reflection and the meditation, it's really important because it gets revealed to you when you are looking. If you're not looking or you're not hearing, then you miss it. That same Pastor Q told me a story about when I think it was Peter who was fishing and they didn't catch anything. So they came in and Jesus tells them to go back out. And he's like, well, only because it's you. Right. Like, cause real, I've been out there all day. Like, there's nothing there. Stop this. And he goes because he told him, which says a lot about, if you tell me to go and I respect you and love you, then I'll listen. And the obedience of that type of relationship. A lot of men and women ain't doing that stuff, right? That's a different conversation. So I do that a lot. So what happens is they go back out into the water, and I almost feel like Peter wants to say, I told you, bruh, there's nothing out here.
You should listen to me.
Right. Yeah. And instead he needed to listen to God, because in a moment there's peace, and you can hear clearly when Jesus says, lower your net. So timing is really, really important to understanding what we're supposed to do and when to do it, right? You have to hear the instruction of lower your net. You had to be able to hear the timing of lower your net. And then you have to be grateful for everything that he's giving you, because you can then bless someone else. Because in the story, they have to call to the other boats to come get the catch that really happened when you listen to God's timing and his instruction. Our steps are ordered, but we're so disagreeable.
Our world, I was just
We're
thinking,
so
like,
bad.
oh my gosh, like a lot of people want to do like a certain thing. Let's say like, I want to marry this person or whatever, and it's like maybe not the right time, but they go ahead and do it, and they jump the gun.
Hello.
And it's like,
twice.
jump the gun.
We're gonna talk about that. Share about that.
But yeah, you can share more on it. But they jump the gun, and it's like, okay, like that was not the right timing. Maybe it could have been that person, but it's not the right timing.
It's not the right timing for our expectation, but it's the right timing for what is purposed for that moment. Right. So we are all narcissistic kind of by nature, not like a disorder, but we think about ourselves. We can't help it, right? So when we have these moments, we have to recognize that we're supposed to shrink and allow God to enlarge in, but we also aren't seeing that we want to see ourselves. Like do I want to look cute when I come here? Yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Even though I was married twice, it doesn't mean that I can't find somebody new. I want my covering, I know things differently now that I would be more successful, but I also know how to look for what I'm looking for as well. We can talk about that too. But yeah, I want to just understand what it is that I'm supposed to do and at what timing. And then just, if I make the wrong choice, it's because I thought what the outcome was supposed to look like, right? It wasn't necessarily what God saw. And that detour is what allows me to end up here, because I was a University of Toronto registrar that took a leave of absence to heal from all of the pain when my father died, to end up doing a podcast about it that ends up going like getting a really good push and niche following, to COVID happening, to having had done hundreds and hundreds of videos that I could just keep putting things out, and then saying, well, those are edited videos. I wonder what it would be like if I was just me talking to people on Instagram Live. And then that became a whole other thing. And from there, I was offered to do my own late night talk show on Viva TV, which I did. I created a show for them called Late Night Cocktales. You can see it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It plays even on Digicel and Flow in the Caribbean and Africa. Nice. So it's in 23 countries. And I did that. Like, I didn't have any, where did that come from? This is 2020. Yeah. It is only 2022, and all of this had happened. I also started to take pictures and on set. And on the Niger Wives of Toronto, I was the behind-the-scenes photographer on that show. And then they found out about my Cocktales podcast, and then they said, do you want to host our reunion special? And I'm like, yes. Thinking that's, I'm there. I'm at where I need to be. No, there's more. Yeah. They're like, we want to make you one of the wives. What? What does my storyline have to be? What you do? What? Yeah. I'm in. Sign me up. Like, how is it that I start with the intention to heal and become sexually knowledgeable about myself, to doing my own talk show, speaking to hundreds and hundreds of people, formulating my own talk show, going on to the Niger Wives, starting another podcast that really is about the arts and sports and entertainment and people's life's journey in the Cocktail Hour. And now doing a documentary with Selena Caesar Chavan about the things and the ways that God has impressed upon me to see it. It's like my photography. If we both take a picture of that, the way that I take a picture of it is informed by so much. And so when I speak based on my experience, I'm looking back in my mind, and it's photographic to me. So I'm describing what I see. So my language seems really like colorful, but it's because I see it in the visual of my mind. And now I'm getting the opportunity to become a documentary filmmaker, where I'm literally going to take the pictures and the way that I'm thinking and put it onto film. Right. That is like, I whispered those things to God in those moments back when I was being hurt. Like, I would dream in like a camera lens. I knew when I was dreaming, if I was dreaming this, I would know that there's a camera behind me taking in all of you, and then another one just panning our faces. Like, that's how I dreamt about things. I always knew that I liked the visual, and now I feel like there's confirmation. And I had to do really hard work to get here. And I don't think anyone understands what it's like to look in the deepest, darkest, ugliest parts of yourself, own it, and then rise back. Like, I went deep sea diving, and you have to come back up slow. But I went up pretty fast, and I knew it was going to hurt my ears, but God called me, so he'd heal me when I got back up. 2 years is all of this has happened. No, I went in.
You can change you in any amount of time. You can.
Anytime. Like, hopefully there's many people that are going to be convicted to be like, I can love God and God can love me, even in the place I stand right now. That will be the greatest glory to him. So